With the Beastmoon Monster Mayhem event now being released to the public in live realm, I wanted to take the time to talk about my first impressions on the event and some issues that I have along the way with this event that I think needs some sort of improvement. Now, personally, overall, I think that it's a really great idea in concept for this game mode. It still is a really good game mode as terms of anything that's beyond PvP. However, I do have some sort of issues with it, and most of it usually just comes down from randoms at the end of the day, but even the event itself still needs some sort of improvements, which I will be talking about in this video specifically. Now, in terms of how the event works, there are a total of 3 rounds, each round consisting of 3 mob battles and a boss phase. Now, with the boss phase, in order to unlock him, you must complete the 3 battles. Each 3 battles includes 2 different mobs, an elite and a regular mob. Once you defeat the 3 battles, you unlock the boss phase. During the boss phase, you are given more mob battles, but this time these mob battles are very special, as these mob battles give special cards if defeated, and these special cards can help people that are within Spiral to get some sort of advantage against the boss. At the end of each round, you are then given the final rewards, which will include some reagents that are generally meant for the decathlon. You also get reagents that probably are meant for Beastmoon, along with Lunari. And it's as simple as that. But the thing is that with this event, it's all timed. And this is where the problem tends to lie. I don't necessarily think that you should just completely remove the time or you completely buff the time to an insane amount, because I do believe that the time limit is what makes the game mode very interesting and very fun. However, I do think there are 3 things that I can think on top of my head that can probably improve the game mode by itself. Now, if I missed anything in this video, let me know down in the comments, and hopefully somehow, someway, a developer can see this and probably take in the feedback and see what they can do to adjust the game mode event to be a lot more fun and also be a lot more rewarding. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is about how this game mode isn't necessarily level 1 Beastman friendly. Now, there's a mechanic within this mode to where if your Beastman form dies and you happen to flee or lose a battle, you're unable to use that Beastman form during the event in that specific matchup. Now, what I mean by this is, let's say you played like the Life Fairy, for example. You died as a Life Fairy, you either flee or your whole team dies. You're then unable to play the Life Fairy for that whole entire match. Now, the problem with this isn't necessarily how there's a sort of mechanic to where it punishes you for dying, but it's really just the fact as to how these Beastman farms aren't necessarily that great at level 1. The only 2 that comes to mind in my opinion will be the Balance Cyclops, the Storm Wolf, the Balance Wolf, and one can argue the Draconian because, you know, it's a very good healer. But most Beastman forms don't necessarily become that great until maybe like around level 2 or level 3. And in order to upgrade Beastmoon levels, you have to spend Lunari. Now, here's where the problem lies. The problem lies with the fact that the rewards are only given, in terms of Lunari, it's only given at the end of a boss phase. And the problem with this is when you're doing this with randoms, you're more than likely not getting any sort of Lunari during that time, unless you get to the boss phase. And even then, you more than likely won't get to the boss phase. You'll be lucky to even beat the boss with randoms, because most of the time it just doesn't work. Sometimes there's always people within the random team that usually just keep slowing down the time, go for the wrong target, or take way too long in order to choose a spell. So these are things that become very serious if you want to get towards the end of the event, or even just want to get some simple Lunari. In my opinion, the way to fix this is by giving Lunari rewards as a final reward, no matter winning or losing. This means that if you were to lose, let's say for example you lost, you get 10 Lunari. You beat the first boss phase, you get 20 Lunari at the end of the final rewards. You beat the second boss phase, 30. You beat the third and final, 40. That way, not only does this promote players to keep playing the game modes, but it also promotes them to keep upgrading their forms. As to the reason why this is very important, well, it's for 3 different things. Number 1 is if you happen to get really unlucky and die in a specific form while also losing. That way you have plenty of other forms to try out. Number 2 is just like regular Beastmoon, when someone takes your specific Beastmoon that you tend to main and use. You have to pick some sort of Beastmoon form, so you might as well get something that is fairly decent at a certain level. And the third thing being is so that they can still be very viable without much of a handicap at the end of the day. Now, the second problem that I want to mention is about the casting spells. Like I just mentioned earlier, how in the boss phase you can fight mob battles, and these mob battles give special cards. Those special cards, I do think they're amazing. They are very useful at almost any situation. Here's one problem. They use up the timer. And the problem with this is to how these spells are not under our control. We can't necessarily pick when to use them. We just use them at the beginning of the first round. And there are some that take quite a while in terms of animation time, to where it just becomes unfair if you were to still count the timer during that time. So in my opinion, I feel like that the casted spells that you get from mobs should pause the timer and maybe, if possible, give an extra few seconds in order to help with the time. Maybe like an extra 5-10 seconds each time you beat these specific battles. And the third and final thing I have to say is the issue with how the game ends. Generally, my main issue with how the game ends is that once the time limit is over, it's over. You can't do anything. Final cast doesn't matter. If you're still casting, it will show your cast, but nothing will happen because by then you're already lost. And I think this is dumb. I feel like they should adopt what they do with tournaments, to where if you're in the casting animation phase and the timer goes to 0, the animation will still keep going, and the game will decide a winner after all the animation is done. And the reason for this is because there's many moments to where you defeat the boss, or you have the chance to defeat the boss, but because you just ran out of time, even though you're in casting animation, you just lose anyway because the game just says that you lost. And I think it's dumb, mainly just because if this isn't a thing that happened in tournaments, why should it be in Beastman Monster Mayhem? Yes, it's a special mode, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that special to where time limits are a very extremely crucial thing that you have to change just because you want to amp up a lot more of the difficulty. It's already difficult enough that you don't really have enough time, and you have to plan out your strategies, play smart and fast. I think that should be enough in terms of with the time limit. Another thing that I also like to mention is maybe having the opportunity to have 2 time clams. One time clam that gives its normal amount of minutes back, I believe it's like 2 extra minutes, and you can have maybe like another time clam where it unlocks after you defeat one of the mobs outside of the spiral, and at most it will give you like a minute. Overall, I think this event is amazing. It is definitely a lot of fun, and I want to try out this event with a couple of friends. I had a really good game actually last time where I was extremely close to defeating the 3rd round boss, but unfortunately, due to time issues and the way the game mode works, I wasn't able to kill the boss, and it was really unfortunate, but it's still a very fun game mode overall. However, that's going to be the end of this video, and I hope you guys did enjoy. If there's anything I missed, let me know down in the comments. Also, make sure to follow me on Twitter because I stay up to date with letting you guys know as to when I'll do an upload, when I'll do a stream, and I also like to communicate with you guys a lot there, so that's also a plus. But other than that, I'll end it here, and as always, remember to stay frenzy. Peace!